Good morning, praise be Jesus Christ. Brother Steven here. Thank you, friends and family, for stopping by this post. Thank you for your time. So I want to tell you a story today before you start and get through the hubbub of every day, myself included. Here at St. Anne's Classical Academy, we're trying to develop a space where kids can be kids, that they can naturally and healthily come to know themselves and this created world, and ultimately the Creator Himself, who created them for love, out of love, and wants them to grow in virtue and wisdom, knowledge of this created realm as well as Him, and to pursue the transcendentals, the good, the beautiful, the true. So we can do this together. We're asking that you help us build that castle for these children, for this next generation. Oftentimes people will say the most important thing we can do is give our kids a good education. And this is true. However, it doesn't just stop with your own kids. And maybe you don't have kids. Maybe you don't have them yet. Maybe you never had them. Maybe you know for certainty you'll never have them. Maybe you're called to a celibate vocation, for instance. Nonetheless, the next generation is important for all of us. We take part in that responsibility of transmitting the truth of humanity, a good, well-formed culture, so that an identity in Christ, God willing, can be transmitted to the next generation, and to the next generation, and so on and so forth. I want to tell you a story, though, this morning. About 650 years ago, there was a university built in England. And on this medieval university, there was a chapel built for the greater glory of God, right? The university was going to pursue the greater glory of God through education, realizing that, truth is not incongruent with the faith that we hold as Christians, that in fact the same Creator that created all things and all knowledge is within is the same one who calls us to live out a life of faith. Well, on this campus, out of all the buildings, the most beautiful was the chapel. Very fitting. It had immaculate, beautiful wood carvings in the altar and in the walls, etc. However, as time went on and things wear down, by the 19th century, the administrators and the custodians of this place realized that there was rotting wood and that there needed to be some serious reconstruction done to this, or rehabilitation of this wood. And yet they were stuck because they didn't know where they could find the beautiful wood, or maybe someone who has the skill, woodworking skill, to be able to bring about a real, true restoration. Nonetheless, they started their search, and they kept searching, they expanded their search wider and wider, then eventually to all the Great Britain, and then eventually to the world, and they were bringing in the most skilled and most professional artisans in this work, and time again they were told, we can't do this, we can't even find wood that's going to meet this quality. So without totally throwing the towel, or just making some shoddy restoration job, they took one last look at the original plans that they were able to find from when the building was constructed 500 years earlier. Praise be Jesus Christ, it's amazing. Anyways, they pulled this out, and they realized that there's a footnote. And at the footnote, it says, knowing that all things come to pass on this side of eternity. Ain't that the truth? We have planted saplings that will eventually be grown for the use of replacing the wood in this chapel in the future. And at that moment, those reading the plans looked out the window of the chapel and they saw those great trees that were sitting there in the courtyards that they enjoyed so much that they had totally looked over when they were looking for wood for this chapel. I mean, who would have thought? Who would have thought that those trees were planted for this purpose? And yet a generation 500 years ago had supplied for this generation in the early 19th century so that they can do the construction that they already knew was going to need to be done. How awesome and inspiring is that notion? We're not thinking not only 10 or 50 years down the line, but we're thinking 500 years, 25 generations down the line. Yeah, this is incredible when we can get people to consider all of humanity and the transmission of the identity in Christ. That all things work for the greater glory of God. That this isn't our life as if we have a claim on it. It's God's. It's a gift to us from Him. And it's flourishing to the extent that we live in His plan for our life and transmit that life and that plan to others. So we're asking if you want to participate in that. That is what we're trying to do here at St. Anne Classical. We are trying to be that transmission of a true identity in the one who created us. Along with the education, same as at university 650 years ago, we're doing the same thing. But here in Raritan, New Jersey, 2021. So we're inviting you, I'm inviting you, to help support St. Anne Classical Academy this day. 2021, Giving Tuesday, our goal is $5,000. We have one of three different campaigns going right now that we're asking that you support, if you are willing. The first one is the general operating expenses for the school, keeps things running. The second one is the marketing fund, which you've heard me speak on before. And then the third one is the tuition angel. It's to help support those who may be financially restricted from entering the school and yet want their kids in the school. We allow others to pay the way for their children, basically. So we're asking that if you can even give $5 today in support of any one of those campaigns. And if you can't, please, we're asking for prayers from everyone, even if you're financially giving. Because what we desperately need above all other things, is the grace of God that is always directly linked to your prayers. God hears your prayers and He listens to them, and He continues to grace all of us accordingly. We firmly feel that, experience it, and know it here at St. Anne Classical Academy. So it's not a joke. Please pray. We thank you for that. Nonetheless, the 57-year life of St. Anne here has been built from generous generations. People who are willing to just give so much for the formation of these kids, the continuation of this culture. We're asking that you participate, and I would love to see you on board. Thank you again, and God bless you this Tuesday.